All the time.
All the time. Good. Are you familiar with the story of Elizabeth Robinson Schwartz? I'm no sports person. Most of you claim to be sports people. 1928, at the age of 16, she's the first woman to win a gold medal in the Olympics. 1931, this is before FAA standards as we have today, she's in a plane crash. Bystanders pull up, they see the wreckage. Someone puts Elizabeth in the trunk of their car, takes her to the morgue. It's assumed that she's dead. At the morgue, they find out she's still alive. They put her in the hospital. She was just, I guess, in a coma. And she is so immobilized, she has to relearn how to walk. 1936, she goes back into the Olympics. She's part of the relay team and helps the team win a gold medal. To me, that's nothing short of miraculous. How many of us pray for a miracle when you're injured? Crystal, you said you had an abscess tooth. Most of you know I just had a tooth pulled about a month ago. I'm telling you what, I was in such agony. The pain was unbearable. I guess I had an infection because my dentist gave me some type of antibiotic, and then the pain kind of went away, and I went to the guy that pulls the teeth, and the one that's recommended root canal, but then it was cracked and it wasn't salvageable. But 37 minutes, 38 minutes, we'll call it 38 minutes of a toothache, and you're about to come unglued. 38 days of a toothache. Because I went about a month. That was. Have you ever been so sick you prayed to God to die? I did one time. I literally laid on the ground and prayed God to take my life. We were doing a mission trip to Mexico. Jamie and I wanted to eat. I got food poisoning. And on the ferry over to Cozumel, I was such. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I prayed to die. I was so sick. Have you ever been so sick, so wounded? Tell us, when you fell off the ladder, man, that had to scare you, right? And then the pain, and you're still dealing with that, aren't you? Confess your sins now. I mean, I read the book of Job. I know how that goes. Could you imagine 38 years of being paralyzed? In a day and age when the average life expectancy of men was 40. Think of all the things you would miss out on. You're not going to get married. I mean, you don't catch at that point, right? You're not going to get to raise kids, so I guess you don't go through the rebellion of the teenagers. I don't know. Maybe it's not all. I don't know. Last night before we went to bed, I had a headache. And after not even 30 minutes, I said, I'm not going to deal with this. So what did I do? I took 2 aspirin. I mean, 30 minutes is a long time to suffer. Kellen has been sick how long now, Amber? 4 weeks. 4 weeks. Maybe he should go to the doctor now, right? So I know he has gone, right? 4 times, right? 4 times. Maybe he needs a 5th doctor. I don't know. But, 4 weeks of fighting the flu or pneumonia. But you bless Lincoln's heart, because not only does he have pneumonia, Dad is sick too. It's hard to imagine a lifetime of misery, though. 38 years, you're paralyzed. It's really hard to imagine in our day of emergency rooms, urgent care, and thank the Lord for WebMD, right, Robbie? Where would we be without that? Telemedicine. I will tell you this. If you have some type of symptom that's bothering you, don't Google those symptoms, because that rabbit hole will lead you to the point that you have a parasite from Peru and an incurable blood cancer. I mean, just stay away from the internet. A lifetime of misery. What did that guy think of all day? Which guy am I talking about? Of course, the guy at the pool of Bethesda. John chapter 5, after this, by the way, after this is a 1.5 year period. John goes 1.5 years from chapter 4 into chapter 5. And by the way, this is the only unnamed festival or feast in the Gospel of John. It's probably the Feast of Tabernacles, which we always think the Passover feast is the most important one because that's the night Jesus is betrayed, and we think of Moses leaving. But in their day and age, the Feast of Tabernacles was the most important one. You can't miss that one. So for there to be a good crowd and people to be in Jerusalem, some people believe this was the Feast of Tabernacles. So after this, there's the Feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda. Not Bethesda, Maryland, but another Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. Now archaeologists have found this exact spot. The pools, there's 2 of them separated by a partition, and they're trapezoid shaped. And then they had 5 colonnades, thanks to the Romans, right, now that we have the arches, and that kind of provides a shelter from the sun and the elements. So, 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. Now we know our man in the story is probably paralyzed because the story is going to unfold. He can't get to the waters. What's so important about the waters? Well, 2 things. This is the sheep gate, and this is where, during the festivals, when you brought your sheep into town to be sacrificed in the temple, they came in through this gate, and they washed them in this pool. So it's ceremonially unclean. Jesus should have been here. As a good rabbi, he should have known better. Plus, you're not supposed to hang around the sick and the invalid. But Jesus doesn't care. He goes anyway. So this is the pool where they wash the sheep and prepare them to come into the temple for sacrifice. One man was there who'd been an invalid for 38 years. And again, think about what it's like having just to have a backache. You know, I'll take Dole's pills, right? You'll take ibuprofen, whatever. 38 years. Unimaginable. Hard to comprehend. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "You want to be healed? Is that what you really want? Do you really want to be healed?" Bethesda, in the original language, means house of mercy. And this guy has come seeking a miracle. Now, the superstition of the day was, when the waters get stirred up by an angel, the text leaves that out here, but they believe that an angel from the Lord would come and stir the waters up. And the first person that could get to the water and touch it would be healed of whatever it was that troubled them. Now again, this is a day and age where you don't have urgent care. You don't have telemedicine. You don't have penicillin. We take that for granted. Think about what a game changer that was. Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, his son dies because he didn't have penicillin. Playing tennis at the White House, gets a blister in his gym shoes, it turns infected, and he dies. Look how simple it is. Today, you're sick, get some penicillin, or what's the amoxicillin? The bubblegum flavored stuff. All kids love that, right? Yeah, everyone's not. Oh yeah, we remember that. None of that. No aspirin, no cortisone shots, nothing. And here's this guy who, if I had to guess, felt pretty useless in life. He's at the mercy of whoever will bring him food. He is an invalid. He can't move. He is laying there, and he's watching the waters. Think of this anticipation. That water's about to stir. And if only I could get to that water, I wouldn't have to feel useless, hopeless, purposeless. Is that even a word, purposeless? You know? And here he is. I wonder what he thought about all day long. What are people away from this pool doing for fun, family? I don't know what he thought about. I'm sure he was consumed with the thought of his sickness. I wonder what it was that he missed out on in life. 38 years. And Jesus asks him a pretty redundant question. I mean, Crystal, when you had that abscess too, if I said you want to get rid of that pain, what would you have said?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You'd say, preacher, you're dumb. Why would you even ask me that?
We're waiting on.
What do we, here we are. Let's go. Like yesterday, let's get this fixed. Betty, we're all praying for you. You're having hip surgery. I mean, if I were to say, do you want to get rid of that pain in your hip, what would you say? Tomorrow, yeah. And Jesus says to him, do you want to be healed? That should cause us to pause and reflect. Jesus didn't say, do you want me to alleviate your discomfort? Do you want me to take away your shame of being a beggar? Do you want me to do something? Jesus, as always, do you want this? Back up for a moment and think of how, as parents, we try to impose our will on our young children as we're forming them. And think if you had God-like powers during those certain transformational years of your life. Nothing hurts more for a parent than to watch their child make a mistake. Think if you were God, would you say, do you want to be healed? What would you do? You're not going to ask. I know what's best for you. So remember last week, or the week before, when the Roman official comes to Jesus, my son's at the point of death, heal him. Jesus says, go your way. He's already healed. So with just a word, right, from a distance. And now we see the same thing again. Someone in need of healing, up close, and Jesus asks what seems to us to be a really dumb question. Do you want to be healed? I feel like such an idiot when I try to explain to people why I'm on the keto diet. But I'm just going to tell you, it's been really good for me. It's been a game changer for me. But I don't want it to become my identity. And I feel like I'm saying something every day to someone different, and I'm like, oh man, is this becoming my identity? Think how much of our health and well-being becomes part of how we see ourselves. Right? There's no way Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to go to his grave and not think of himself as Mr. Olympic. Is that possible? Or Mr. Universe, right? The guy wins it 6 times, but not 6 years in a row. Anyone can do that. He does it at different periods of his life. There's no way he's not going to see himself, well, I would do the pose, but I don't want to embarrass anyone. But think about it, right? Think if you were like in a boot for 6 weeks because your ankle was broken. Everyone at work's going to think of you as the guy that fell off the ladder. Right? I'm not talking to you, Frank Kaufman, if you're watching. I'm talking to Tal. It becomes part of our identity. There's not much we can do about it. Do you want to be healed? What if this was this guy's identity? Is he the firstborn? Is he the lastborn? Was his dad some guy that grew olives? A shepherd? How does he see himself? He sees himself as the guy who's laying at the edge of the pool who's sick, probably self-pity, self-loathing, worthlessness, and that's how he sees himself. And Jesus says, do you want to be healed? Maybe you've kind of fallen into that, and you like the sympathy. You like the attention. There's always a joke between men and women. If the man is looking for a jar of pickles in the fridge and he can't find it, the women will say, well, it didn't just jump right out. You can't find it, right? Sometimes things don't just jump right out. But also sometimes it's nice not to have to look in the fridge for something if everyone's going to bring it to you. The guy doesn't have to make any decisions. He doesn't have to take any responsibility. On the one hand, you'd say, this is like worse than a prison sentence. On the other hand, the guy's like, for me. Do you want to be healed? The sick man answered, Sir, I have no one to put me in the pool. Remember, the angel supposedly you touch it and you're healed. There's a theory, and I can never pronounce the name properly, Asclepius, the ancient Greek god of healing, that's like the serpent on the pole. We don't know for sure. But some archaeologists claim that at this pool, at this time, there was on the wall a mosaic or an image of Asclepius there. Right in Jerusalem. Not good. You want to be healed? No one puts me in the water when it's stirred up. And while I'm going, another steps in down before me. So he's already crawling because he can't walk. Pulling himself with his arms, dragging himself. Someone else gets there. Jesus says, get up. Take up your bed, which is an interesting phrase in the Greek. It's krabatolis, I think it is. It's not the bed or the cot that healthy people sleep on. It's a strictly paraplegic, infirmity type mat for sick people in the ancient world. So as soon as he takes up and says, well, people are going to recognize that. Oh, you got that at Walmart or Target, whatever. Right? They know from the style of it that this is a sick person. So it's sending a message, right? Take up your bed and walk. And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and he walked. Imagine, if you will, the immense sense of a burden relieved. I have my health, right? You think he's kicking his heels together? You think he's going to turn around, fall on his knees, and hug Jesus and thank him? No. There's no indication in the text he's ever appreciative. Not a verbal thank you, not a hug, not even a high five, right? And he goes his way, and now the story has significance for the Gospel of John. Because now we have a turning point. John is going to introduce us. John is going to involve us in the story at a depth that has salvational hooks to it. John is going to bring us into the backdrop of the story of things where they really begin to get interesting. In Jesus' day and age, the Jewish people had 39 different classifications, 39 different rules, 39 different topics of what was signified as work on the Sabbath. Women could not have a sewing needle stuck in their cloak, because like you carry stuff in your wallet. Back then, they would just put a needle in there in case they had to sew something. You couldn't put that needle in there because you might be tempted to sew a garment on the Sabbath day. You could only walk 2,000 paces from your house on the Sabbath day. A woman couldn't look in the mirror because she might be tempted to comb her hair, and that would consist of work. And the list goes on and on. This guy's carrying the mat on the Sabbath day. Now, the Jews allowed, if you fell down and got hurt, that you could be put on a stretcher, and people could lift you up on a stretcher to get you away from harm's reach and get you to some type of medical care. That didn't break the Sabbath. But if you carried your own bedding from, and in their words, from one house to another, you broke the Sabbath. Doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. But it's also hard to wrap our mind around a culture of obedience in a highly individualistic world that we live in today. I mean, basically, would you like it if I came into your house and told you how you were doing things wrong? No. Probably not. Imagine a communal enforcement of the Sabbath. This guy's walking, and all of a sudden it's got nobody cared when he was laying there on death's doorstep. But the moment Johnny gets up and carries the mat, everybody's radar goes off. Oh, you can't do that. It's the Sabbath. The Jews said to the man who'd been healed, "Hey, congratulations." No. "Oh, it's good to see you up again after 38 years." No. It's the Sabbath, and it's not lawful for you to take up your bed. But he answered them, "Hey, it's not my fault, because that guy who healed me, he said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.' Who am I to argue with?" Well, verse 12, who's the man who said to you, "Take up your bed and walk"? The man who had been healed did not know who it was. Time out. When was the last time that you didn't self-promote your congregation if you did something good? Right? Hey, just want you to know, courtesy of. Jesus doesn't even say this miracle is brought to you by Jesus Christ Superstar. Doesn't even tell him who he is. It's nuts. It's crazy. Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was. Jesus had withdrawn, and now there's a crowd in the place. Afterwards, Jesus finds him in the temple and says to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went away, told the Jews, it was Jesus that had healed him. And here's the backdrop of the whole importance of the story. It's very important Jesus heals the guy, because that proves what? Deity. Ordained by God. But John says, no, there's something more that you need to know. The man went away, told the Jews, and this, verse 16, is why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, and now here comes the real, like at the end of the fireworks, the big finale, right? You like all the boom, but then it's like percussion, and it's all the big lights going straight up. Here comes the finale. Jesus answered, "My Father's working until now, and I am working." This, verse 18, this is why the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him. Because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God. Sabbath literally means to cease or to rest. I want to ask you a quick question. Which of the 10 Commandments do you feel are okay to break? They are etched in stone. Mike, do you remember Mel Brooks' History of the World? I bring you these 15 crash, 10 commandments, right? Which of the 10 commandments can we break? Come on. Who doesn't like to be lied to or stolen from? But the Sabbath, we have no problem with that. Have you ever thought of the purpose and the principle of the Sabbath? You're not God. You can't do it all. You're not created to do it all. In the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth. He creates life. He creates the fish of the sea, the plants, creates man. on the seventh day, he rested. Whose image are you created in? There's a purpose there that we neglect to our own detriment. I've seen the meme 1,000 times. You've seen it too. You better choose a day to rest or your body will choose it for you. Amber, school's coming back soon. I couldn't imagine being a school teacher. Dealing with someone else's kids all day long, then grading papers at night. What's that, Lincoln?
He's excited for school.
Oh, he's excited for school. You're probably excited for school, right? Robbie's excited. It's time for all those inoculations or whatever they call it when they get into school. I can't do it all. I have to learn to pause. There's a purpose behind it. God wants you to trust Him. God doesn't want you to think you can do it all by your own effort. Does God want us to work? Yes. Ecclesiastes 5. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. Work hard. Be rewarded. There is a sense of purpose because God is a worker. God puts us in the garden as a partner. Adam and Eve puts them in the garden to tend the garden, to work with them in the garden. We are called to partner in the kingdom with Jesus now. When He makes us disciples, when we're baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and we learn to do all that He commanded, we're partnering, we're working. But we are human beings, not human doings. So there's a purpose to remind us that we're not invincible. There's a principle there. You better find a time to pause. These folks make it into a legalistic tradition. They miss the heart of the matter. You're supposed to be trusting in God. You rest, you relax, you're rewarded by God. And just like religion always does, it builds a ritual around an idea, and it makes the ritual more important than the center of the idea. It's as if by your own efforts to work hard to follow a principle of pausing that now God finds you acceptable. There's such a contrast in this story between keeping the rules and having compassion. No one seemed to have compassion for the guy, but they certainly had a lot of offense. Jesus, I'm working. The Father's working. I'm not breaking rules just to break rules. I'm not an iconoclast. But there's a principle that you all are missing. You're elevating this rule above the sickness of the man, of the healer. So, we know that the story hinges on the idea that Jesus tells the guy to get up and walk, and the Jewish leaders become upset. But I don't live in Jerusalem, you don't live in Jerusalem. But there's an element to the story that should really catch our attention. Because we are so focused as people on health and well-being, and there's nothing wrong with that. We want to be healthy. We want to lead healthy lives. We want to have a quality of life. There's nothing wrong with that. But Jesus says, guess what? There's something even more consequential. The man who had been healed didn't know it was Jesus. Jesus finds him in the temple. See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you. What kind of sin could a guy commit who's been laying on the ground for 38 years? I don't know. Maybe it was the self-pity. Maybe it was the self-loathing. Probably the superstition. Thinking that an angel touching the water. Maybe it was the Asclepius, however you say the guy's name. Maybe he was trusting in him. Maybe it was the source of his identity. Finding his identity as an invalid instead of finding it as a child of God. I don't know. Maybe it's where he placed his trust. Self-pity, hopelessness, desperation. Could be. Just imagine you were in that condition for 38 years. The bitterness he stored in his heart and the envy as he saw people coming and going freely. They've got it so good they don't know what it's like to be me. I don't know what the sin was. Laying there for 37 years, it's probably just a world of obstacles and no hope. Get up. Walk. You want to be healed? Go. Consequences of sin worse than what you've just been through for 38 years. I find it interesting Jesus didn't heal the whole group. I mean, the text clearly says there's a lot of people there. Verse 3, in these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. Hundreds upon hundreds. Doesn't heal the whole group. This guy doesn't even thank him. Religious people don't appreciate the miracle. They're blinded by tradition. So where does this leave us? Hopefully we'll strive to have better balance in our lives, looking at the texts, thinking about the story, between tradition, which is good, and serving God. They're caught up on their view of the Sabbath. May we, when we look at a story like this, be people who project compassion for people who are like this. Practice more mercy. Have a heart, or at least pray for people who suffer. Apparently, from the way Jesus concludes this, maybe we need to contemplate the consequences of sin. Jesus says, you think this is bad to lay here for 38 years. Let me tell you what. The consequences of sin, hard to believe, will produce more suffering than your sickness. But finally, what really comes to mind is, let's be people who take Jesus at his word. He's laying there, get up and take it. He doesn't continue to lay there. Well, I got to have you do something, Jesus. Touch me, spit on me. We'll get to that later. You think that's gross, but that's going to come when we get to chapter 9. Burn some sage over him, something, Jesus. I got to see proof. He doesn't. He takes Jesus at his word. He could have just laid there, healed, and not moved. You do know that, right? He could have just laid there, unchanged, languishing in his doubt and his disbelief. But he took Jesus at his word, and I hope we will too.